Princess Elena of Valdoria had always been the picture of grace and strength. With her flowing auburn hair and emerald eyes, she commanded respect wherever she walked through the marble halls of Rosehaven Palace. The kingdom of Valdoria had prospered under her father, King Edmund's rule, and the people adored their royal family. But behind the golden walls of the palace, a shadow was growing that would soon threaten everything Elena held dear. It began on a crisp autumn morning when Elena collapsed during the annual Harvest Festival ceremony. The crowd gasped as their beloved princess crumpled to the ground, her usually radiant complexion pale as winter snow. The royal guards quickly surrounded her, creating a protective barrier as Dr. Marcus Whitfield, the kingdom's most trusted physician, rushed to her side. Queen Isabella, Elena's stepmother who had married King Edmund 5 years earlier, watched from the royal balcony with an expression that seemed more calculating than concerned. Her dark eyes followed every movement as the unconscious princess was carefully carried back to the palace. The crowd dispersed with worried murmurs, but Isabella remained still, her fingers drumming slowly against the stone railing. Dr. Whitfield had served the royal family for over 2 decades. His gray beard and kind eyes had comforted 3 generations of royals through various ailments. He had delivered Elena when she was born, treated her childhood fevers, and had always been completely honest with the royal family about medical matters. But as he examined the princess in her chambers, something felt different this time. Elena's symptoms were puzzling. She experienced severe fatigue, mysterious joint pain, and episodes of dizziness that seemed to come from nowhere. Her blood tests showed unusual patterns that Dr. Whitfield had never encountered before. He spent hours in his study, poring over medical texts and consulting with specialists from neighboring kingdoms through encrypted letters. Meanwhile, Queen Isabella began making frequent visits to Dr. Whitfield's office. She would arrive with tea and pastries, speaking in soft, concerned tones about Elena's condition. "The poor dear has been under so much stress," Isabella would say, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Perhaps it would be better if the people didn't know the full extent of her illness. We wouldn't want to cause unnecessary panic in the kingdom." At first, Dr. Whitfield appreciated the Queen's concern. Isabella spoke eloquently about protecting Elena's privacy and maintaining stability in Valdoria. She reminded him of his oath to first do no harm, suggesting that revealing Elena's true condition might damage her chances of recovery and her future ability to rule. But as the weeks passed, Dr. Whitfield began to notice inconsistencies. During one particularly concerning examination, he discovered evidence that suggested Elena's condition might not be entirely natural. Trace amounts of a rare mineral were found in her system, something that shouldn't exist in the human body under normal circumstances. This mineral, known as nightbane, was found only in the distant mountains of Valdoria and was known to cause the exact symptoms Elena was experiencing. When Dr. Whitfield tried to discuss these findings with King Edmund, he found his access to the monarch strangely limited. Queen Isabella seemed to appear whenever he requested an audience, explaining that the king was too distraught to discuss medical details and that all information should go through her first. She assured him that she would relay everything to her husband, but somehow the king never seemed to receive the full picture. Elena herself began to suspect something was wrong beyond her illness. During her brief periods of clarity, she noticed how Isabella's visits to her chambers had increased, always bringing special herbal teas that the queen claimed would help with her recovery. After drinking these teas, Elena's symptoms always seemed to worsen, leaving her too weak to participate in royal duties or even receive visitors. Dr. Whitfield found himself in an impossible position. His medical oath demanded that he provide the best care for his patient, but Queen Isabella's arguments about protecting the kingdom's stability made him question his judgment. She spoke of Elena's engagement to Prince Alexander of the neighboring kingdom of Astoria, emphasizing how news of a serious illness might jeopardize this crucial political alliance. "Think of what this means for Valdoria's future," Isabella would whisper during their private conversations. "If Prince Alexander's family believes Elena is unfit to bear heirs or rule alongside their son, they might withdraw from the engagement. Our kingdom's security depends on this marriage alliance. Sometimes protecting someone means protecting their secrets." The pressure mounted when Isabella began bringing official-looking documents that supposedly came from King Edmund himself, requesting that Elena's true condition be kept confidential. Dr. Whitfield's hands shook as he read these papers, though something about the handwriting seemed slightly off. Still, the royal seal appeared authentic, and he didn't dare question the Queen's word directly. As autumn turned to winter, Elena's condition continued to deteriorate. She spent most days confined to her chambers, too weak to perform her royal duties. The people of Valdoria were told she was suffering from exhaustion and needed rest. Public appearances were canceled, and official portraits from previous years were used for royal announcements. Dr. Whitfield's conscience began to eat away at him. Late at night, he would sit in his study, staring at Elena's test results that clearly showed signs of poisoning. The evidence was undeniable. Yet Queen Isabella's persuasive words echoed in his mind. She had convinced him that revealing the truth would destroy not just Elena, but the entire kingdom. One evening, as snow began to fall outside the palace windows, Dr. Whitfield made a decision that would haunt him forever. He sealed Elena's true medical records in a locked chest and prepared a false diagnosis to present to the royal council. The official report would state that Princess Elena was suffering from a rare but manageable condition that required extended rest and privacy. But as he prepared to sign this falsified report, Dr. Whitfield noticed something that made his blood run cold. Through his office window, he could see Queen Isabella in the palace gardens, carefully tending to a small patch of plants that grew despite the winter cold. In the moonlight, he recognized the distinctive purple flowers of the nightbane plant, the same mineral that was slowly poisoning Princess Elena. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. Queen Isabella wasn't just hiding Elena's condition, she was causing it. The caring stepmother, the concerned queen, the woman who spoke so eloquently about protecting the kingdom, was systematically poisoning the heir to the throne. And Dr. Whitfield, the man sworn to protect his patients, had been helping her cover it up. His hands trembling, Dr. Whitfield looked down at the false medical report on his desk. With Elena growing weaker each day and Queen Isabella's influence over the palace growing stronger, he realized he faced the most difficult decision of his life. Should he continue to protect what he thought was Elena's privacy, or should he risk everything to expose the terrible truth that was slowly destroying the princess and the kingdom she was meant to inherit? Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the palace grounds in a blanket of white that concealed the dark secrets growing beneath. Dr. Whitfield spent the entire night wrestling with his discovery. The false medical report lay unsigned on his desk as dawn broke over the snow-covered kingdom of Valdoria. Every fiber of his being screamed that he needed to act, but Queen Isabella's web of manipulation had been so carefully constructed that he questioned his own sanity. Could the beloved queen really be capable of such evil? His answer came the next morning when Isabella arrived at his office with her usual smile and a fresh pot of tea. "How is our dear Elena today?" she asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. But this time Dr. Whitfield noticed things he had missed before. The way her eyes never quite met his when she spoke of Elena's welfare. The slight upturn of her lips when she mentioned the princess's worsening condition. The calculated pause before each expression of concern. "Your Majesty," Dr. Whitfield began carefully, "I've been reviewing Elena's symptoms again. The pattern suggests something more serious than we initially thought. Perhaps we should consider bringing in specialists from other kingdoms, or even..." He watched her face closely, or even examining her food and drink more carefully. Isabella's mask slipped for just a moment. Her eyes flashed with something cold and dangerous before the concerned expression returned. "Oh, my dear doctor, you worry too much. Elena has always been delicate. Remember how frail she was as a child. Perhaps this is simply the natural progression of an inherited weakness. After all, her mother died quite young, didn't she?" The mention of Elena's deceased mother sent chills down Dr. Whitfield's spine. Queen Margaret had died suddenly when Elena was 12, officially from a mysterious illness that no physician could properly diagnose. At the time, everyone had been so grateful when King Edmund married Isabella, believing the kingdom needed a mother figure for the young princess. Dr. Whitfield excused himself and spent the rest of the day researching Queen Margaret's medical records. What he found made his worst fears seem small in comparison. Queen Margaret's symptoms had been remarkably similar to Elena's current condition. The same mysterious fatigue, the same joint pain, the same gradual weakening that had baffled the royal physicians of that time. But there was more. Dr. Whitfield discovered that Isabella had been a frequent visitor to Queen Margaret during her final months, often bringing special herbal remedies that she claimed would help with the Queen's recovery. Isabella had positioned herself as the perfect devoted friend, eventually becoming so trusted that she was present during Margaret's final moments. The pieces of a horrifying puzzle began to fall into place. Isabella hadn't married King Edmund out of love. She had orchestrated her way into the royal family by slowly murdering his first wife. And now, with Elena approaching her 21st birthday and her official coronation as crown princess, Isabella was repeating the same deadly pattern. But Dr. Whitfield faced an almost impossible challenge. Queen Isabella had spent years building her reputation as the perfect royal consort. The people loved her charitable work, the nobles respected her diplomatic skills, and King Edmund was completely devoted to her. Who would believe that this paragon of virtue was actually a calculating murderer? Meanwhile, Elena's condition continued to worsen. During one of his examinations, she managed to grasp his hand with surprising strength. "Dr. Whitfield," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Something is wrong. I can feel it. The tea. After I drink Isabella's tea, everything becomes dark and painful. Please, you have to help me." Her words confirmed what he already suspected, but they also placed an enormous burden on his shoulders. Elena was aware enough to recognize the pattern, but too weak to protect herself. If Dr. Whitfield didn't act soon, the princess would suffer the same fate as her mother. The doctor decided to conduct a secret experiment. He managed to obtain samples of the herbal tea that Isabella regularly brought to Elena's chambers. Working late into the night in a hidden laboratory beneath the palace, he analyzed every ingredient. Most of the herbs were harmless: chamomile, lavender, mint, but buried within the mixture was a carefully measured dose of processed nightbane extract. The amount was small enough to avoid immediate detection, but large enough to cause gradual organ failure over time. Isabella had been poisoning Elena slowly and systematically, making it appear as though the princess was suffering from a natural but mysterious illness. The method was brilliant in its cruelty. Elena would waste away over months, giving Isabella time to solidify her position and perhaps even influence the succession. Dr. Whitfield realized that Isabella's ultimate goal was likely to become regent if Elena died before producing an heir. With King Edmund growing older and no other direct descendants, Isabella would effectively control the kingdom. She had probably been planning this scheme since before she married the king, waiting patiently for the right moment to eliminate the only obstacle to her complete power. But exposing Isabella would require more than just medical evidence. Dr. Whitfield needed proof of her actions and a way to present it that couldn't be dismissed or covered up. He began to document everything carefully, creating multiple copies of his findings and hiding them in different locations throughout the palace. The breakthrough came when Dr. Whitfield discovered Isabella's private chambers contained a hidden room behind a false wall. Using his knowledge of the palace's secret passages, routes he had learned during decades of discreet house calls, he managed to investigate the space. What he found was a sophisticated laboratory filled with botanical equipment, rare plants, and detailed journals describing the effects of various poisons on human subjects. The journals were written in Isabella's own hand and contained chilling entries about Queen Margaret's declining health, noted with clinical detachment. There were also preliminary notes about Elena, tracking the princess's response to different dosages of nightbane extract. Most terrifying of all were the future plans outlined in the final pages. Isabella intended to gradually eliminate other potential heirs to the throne, including King Edmund himself once Elena was gone. Armed with this evidence, Dr. Whitfield faced his final challenge. How could he reveal the truth without giving Isabella a chance to destroy the evidence or harm Elena further? Queen Isabella had too much influence in the palace and too many people who trusted her completely. A direct accusation might simply result in his own disappearance. The solution came from an unexpected source. Prince Alexander of Astoria arrived for a surprise visit, concerned about his fiancée's prolonged illness. He had traveled in secret, accompanied only by his personal physician, Dr. Elizabeth Kane, a woman renowned throughout the neighboring kingdoms for her expertise in toxicology. Dr. Whitfield saw his opportunity. During a private moment, he approached Dr. Kane and shared his concerns about Elena's symptoms. Without revealing his suspicions about Isabella, he simply asked for a second opinion on the case. Dr. Kane's examination of Elena confirmed everything Dr. Whitfield had discovered. The princess was being systematically poisoned. But even with this confirmation, Dr. Whitfield hesitated. Exposing Isabella meant revealing his own role in covering up Elena's condition. He would have to admit that he had been manipulated into hiding the truth, that his silence had nearly cost the princess her life. His reputation, his career, everything he had built over decades of service would be destroyed. As if sensing his internal struggle, Dr. Kane placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "protecting our patients means sacrificing everything else we care about. That's the burden we carry as healers." Her words gave Dr. Whitfield the courage he needed. That evening, as Queen Isabella prepared another deadly tea for Elena's bedtime routine, he made his decision. The time for silence was over. The truth would come out, no matter the cost to himself or the kingdom. Princess Elena's life and the future of Valdoria depended on his next actions. But as he prepared to confront the Queen, Dr. Whitfield had no idea that Isabella had been watching him carefully, noting his suspicious behavior and unusual questions. The deadly game they had been playing was about to reach its climax, and only one of them would emerge victorious. The confrontation came sooner than Dr. Whitfield expected. As he prepared to leave his office that evening, carrying copies of his evidence to show Prince Alexander, Queen Isabella appeared in his doorway. But this time, there was no pretense of warmth or concern. Her eyes were cold as winter steel, and she was no longer alone. 2 palace guards flanked her, men whose loyalty Dr. Whitfield had never questioned before. "Going somewhere, Doctor?" Isabella asked, her voice deceptively calm. "I was hoping we could have a private conversation about Elena's treatment plan." Dr. Whitfield's heart pounded, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Of course, Your Majesty. I was just reviewing some additional test results that might help with her recovery." Isabella stepped into the office, and the guards closed the door behind them. The soft click of the lock sounded like a death sentence. "You know, Doctor, I've always admired your dedication to the royal family. 23 years of faithful service. It would be tragic if that loyalty were ever questioned. The threat was clear, but Dr. Whitfield had come too far to back down now. Your Majesty, I've discovered some concerning information about Elena's condition. The test results indicate that she's been exposed to nightbane poisoning over an extended period. Isabella's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Nightbane? How curious. And where exactly would someone obtain such a rare substance in our peaceful kingdom? I believe someone has been cultivating it in the palace gardens, Dr. Whitfield replied, watching her carefully. Someone with access to Elena's food and drink. Someone who was also close to Queen Margaret during her final illness. For a moment, the room was silent except for the crackling of the fireplace. Then Isabella began to laugh, a sound devoid of any warmth. Oh, my dear doctor, you've always been so thorough in your examinations, perhaps too thorough for your own good. She moved to his desk and picked up the unsigned false medical report. You know, when I first suggested that we protect Elena's privacy, I genuinely believed you understood what was at stake. The stability of the kingdom, the future of Valdoria, the peace we've worked so hard to maintain. The future of Valdoria depends on Princess Elena, Dr. Whitfield said firmly. She is the rightful heir, and she's being murdered. Isabella's facade finally cracked completely. Elena is weak, just like her mother. Valdoria needs strong leadership, not a sickly princess who can barely stand without assistance. I've spent years preparing to guide this kingdom into a golden age, and I won't let anyone destroy that vision. The admission hung in the air like a death warrant. Dr. Whitfield realized that Isabella had never intended to let him leave this room alive. She had come to eliminate the one person who knew the truth about her crimes. But Isabella had underestimated the old doctor. As one of the guards moved toward him, Dr. Whitfield activated a mechanism hidden beneath his desk, a panic system he had installed years ago in case of medical emergencies. Silent alarms began flashing throughout the palace, summoning the royal guard to his location. Isabella's eyes blazed with fury. You foolish old man. Do you think anyone will believe your wild accusations against me? I am beloved by this kingdom. You are just a bitter physician whose mind has finally cracked under the pressure. Perhaps, Dr. Whitfield replied, but I'm not the only one who knows the truth. At that moment, the office door burst open. Prince Alexander strode in, followed by Dr. Elizabeth Kane, Captain Marcus of the Royal Guard, and several soldiers loyal to Princess Elena. Behind them came King Edmund himself, his face pale with shock and growing understanding. Release Dr. Whitfield immediately, Prince Alexander commanded, his voice carrying the authority of his royal bloodline. Dr. Kane moved quickly to the doctor's side, checking him for injuries. King Edmund stared at his wife, his expression transforming from confusion to heartbreak to rage. Isabella, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you haven't... His voice broke as the full implications of the situation became clear. Isabella straightened, her composure returning as she faced her accusers. My beloved husband, these people are spreading lies about me. They're trying to turn you against the woman who has stood by your side for 5 years. But Dr. Kane stepped forward, holding a vial of the contaminated tea. Your Majesty, this contains enough nightbane extract to cause severe organ damage over time. We found Isabella's private laboratory, along with detailed journals describing how she poisoned your first wife and has been systematically murdering your daughter. The evidence was overwhelming. Isabella's journals, the hidden laboratory, the poisoned tea, Dr. Whitfield's medical records. Everything painted a picture of calculated, methodical murder spanning nearly a decade. King Edmund aged 10 years in that moment. The woman he had loved and trusted, the woman he had believed was helping him heal from the loss of his first wife, had been the architect of all his family's suffering. Margaret, he whispered, understanding flooding his features. You killed Margaret. Isabella's mask finally fell away completely, revealing the cold ambition beneath. I saved this kingdom from weak leadership. Margaret was too gentle, too trusting. Elena is cut from the same cloth. Valdoria needs someone with the strength to make hard decisions, someone willing to do what must be done for the greater good. The greater good? Prince Alexander stepped forward, his hand on his sword. You call murdering innocent women the greater good? I call it necessity, Isabella replied with chilling calm. Elena would have been a disaster as queen. At least now she can die in her sleep, remembered as a beloved princess rather than a failed ruler. Her words sealed her fate. King Edmund's grief transformed into righteous fury. Guards, arrest this woman for the murders of Queen Margaret and the attempted murder of Princess Elena. She will be tried for treason and crimes against the crown. As the guards moved to apprehend her, Isabella made one final, desperate move. She pulled a small vial from her robes, a concentrated dose of the same poison she had been using on Elena. If I cannot rule Valdoria, then I'll take its secrets to the grave. She raised the vial to her lips, but Dr. Kane was faster. The physician struck the vial from Isabella's hand, and it shattered against the stone floor, its contents spreading like spilled blood. Isabella was dragged away, her cries of protest echoing through the palace halls. The guards who had been loyal to her were also arrested, their corruption exposed by her final confessions. Dr. Whitfield immediately rushed to Elena's chambers, where he began the delicate process of treating her poisoning. With Dr. Kane's assistance and the knowledge of exactly what toxins had been used, they were able to reverse much of the damage. It would take months of careful treatment, but Elena would recover. When Elena finally awakened 3 days later, free from the fog of constant poisoning, her first words were of gratitude to the man who had saved her life. Dr. Whitfield, you kept your oath after all. The trial of Isabella was swift but thorough. The evidence was overwhelming, and her own admissions left no room for doubt. She was sentenced to life imprisonment in the highest tower of Valdoria's most secure fortress, where she would spend the rest of her days contemplating the lives she had destroyed in her quest for power. King Edmund struggled with the guilt of having been deceived, but Dr. Whitfield helped him understand that Isabella had been a master manipulator who had fooled an entire kingdom. Your Majesty, love makes us vulnerable to those who would exploit it. That doesn't make love wrong. It makes their betrayal all the more evil. Princess Elena's recovery became a symbol of hope for the kingdom. Her engagement to Prince Alexander was renewed with joy rather than political obligation, and their future marriage promised to unite two kingdoms in genuine alliance rather than mere convenience. Dr. Whitfield was honored as a hero of the realm, though he always insisted that he had simply done his duty as a physician. The experience had taught him that sometimes protecting a patient means questioning authority, even royal authority, when something feels wrong. As spring returned to Valdoria, the nightbane plants in the palace gardens were destroyed and replaced with healing herbs. Elena established new protocols for the royal household, ensuring that no one person could ever again wield such dangerous influence over the royal family. The kingdom emerged from its ordeal stronger and more vigilant. The people had learned that evil could hide behind a beautiful face and persuasive words, but they had also learned that truth, courage, and dedication to doing what was right would always triumph in the end. Princess Elena eventually became Queen Elena, ruling with wisdom gained from her brush with death and compassion learned through suffering. She never forgot the lesson that power without conscience is the most dangerous poison of all, and her reign became legendary for its justice and its protection of the innocent. Dr. Whitfield continued to serve the royal family until his peaceful death many years later, secure in the knowledge that he had chosen correctly when faced with the most difficult decision of his life. His legacy lived on in the medical protocols he established, and in the unwavering principle that a healer's first duty is always to the truth, no matter how dangerous that truth might be.